The year is 2479, and humanity has pushed the boundaries of space exploration further than ever before. A massive ship, the Horizon, embarks on its most daring mission yet, a voyage to the edge of the galaxy, where long-forgotten ruins of an ancient race, the Titans, were detected by an exploratory probe. These Titans, beings of colossal strength and unknown origin, vanished millennia ago, leaving only cryptic remnants behind. The team aboard the Horizon, a mix of scientists, archaeologists, and military advisors, are determined to uncover the secrets of this lost race. The station they discover is unlike anything humanity has ever seen. Floating in the silence of deep space, it appears as a massive, hollowed-out asteroid, covered in intricate alien carvings that seem to shimmer under the ship's lights. No signals, no transmissions, just eerie, profound silence. The station seems to exude a haunting aura, as if it's waiting for something, or someone, to wake it from its long slumber. Captain Leland Nash, the leader of the mission, looks out from the observation deck. The sheer size of the station dwarfs the Horizon, its jagged, asymmetrical structure rising like the bones of some long-dead creature. "Prepare for boarding," she commands, her voice steady, but tinged with an edge of excitement. Her crew, a mix of brilliant minds and battle-hardened veterans, work quickly to prepare for what might be humanity's most important discovery, or their last. Once inside the station, the explorers are struck by its eerie quiet. The corridors are vast, their architecture incomprehensible, walls covered in alien runes that pulse faintly with an energy that seems to breathe. The air is thick, the atmosphere pressurized but stale, as if the place had been sealed off for eons. The scientists begin scanning the walls, trying to make sense of the strange patterns, while the soldiers, weapons drawn, stay alert, their senses heightened. Dr. Felix Arden, the mission's lead archaeologist, stumbles upon something that causes his breath to catch. It's a massive doorway, sealed shut by a force they can't explain. The markings on it are unmistakable. The symbols match those seen in the texts they uncovered before leaving Earth. The Titans had built this place, and whatever lay beyond was of immeasurable importance. As the team works to open the doorway, something unexpected happens. A faint hum resonates through the station, a deep, vibrating frequency that rattles the walls. It's as if the entire structure is awakening. Lila's heart races. "Everyone, get back. Now." She's not sure what's happening, but the sense of danger is palpable. Before they can react, the door slowly begins to open, revealing a cavernous chamber. In the center of the room stands what looks like a massive suit of armor, its proportions enormous, standing far taller than any human. The suit is crafted from a strange metal that gleams like polished obsidian, etched with the same glowing symbols they had seen earlier. It pulses with a faint blue light, almost as though it's alive. Felix steps forward, unable to resist the pull of the artifact. This is a Titan suit," he whispers. His voice is filled with awe and fear. It's not just a relic, it's something more. Without warning, the moment Felix's fingers brush against the armor, the entire room lights up, flooding with energy. The explorers stumble back, startled, as an electric surge races through the station. The hum grows louder, now a violent crescendo. The walls pulse, the metal groans, and deep within the chamber, something stirs, something alive. Leela feels a cold shiver down her spine. Shut it down. Now. But it's too late. A flash of brilliant light erupts from the armor, and the ground shakes violently beneath their feet. The suit's eyes, if they could even be called that, flicker to life. The chamber seems to respond, its walls closing in as though it has just begun its ancient function. The air crackles with electricity. The Titan suit is no longer dormant, it's awake. The teen watches in shock and fear as a voice, deep and ancient, reverberates through the room. It's not a human voice. It's something far older, yet oddly familiar, filled with the weight of millennia. "Who awakens the Titans?" The explorers stand frozen, unsure whether they have just uncovered the greatest treasure in galactic history, or unleashed an unstoppable force that will consume them all. The chamber trembles as the deep, reverberating voice echoes again. Who awakens the Titans? It's not just a question, it's a demand, as if the very fabric of the station responds to the ancient being. Lila Nash feels the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end as the voice fills the room. Its power almost tangible, seeping into their very bones. Felix Arden, who had stepped forward when the armor first activated, stumbles back as though the voice had physically struck him. His breath comes in short gasps. It's impossible. This can't be happening. He mutters, eyes wide in disbelief. He is no longer speaking to anyone in particular, but to the terrifying truth dawning on him. The suit, or whatever it is far more than a relic. It is a sentient being, a remnant of a race whose very presence now stirs something far beyond their understanding. Leela motions for her team to stay back. She's seen fear in their eyes before, during encounters with pirates, hostile forces, and disasters. But this is different. This is something ancient, something that defies all their knowledge of the universe. Activate the defense protocols. Commander Eric Trent, the military officer in charge of security, orders, his voice strained as he draws his weapon. He knows that every second counts now, that the power within this station could be more dangerous than any adversary they faced. But even as his team assembles, weapons raised, the air grows heavy with a strange, electric charge, like the calm before a storm. Suddenly, a series of holographic projections flicker into existence. They dance in the air like translucent fireflies, forming a complex series of patterns and symbols. It takes a moment for anyone to process them, but when they do, their eyes widen. The symbols mirror the alien runes scattered across the walls of the station, and as the projections shift, they begin to tell a story, a warning. The story of the Titans. The imagery is breathtaking, the holograms flickering with strange, beautiful colors, showing scenes of a war that raged across the stars. Titans, clad in their armor, stood against an enemy unlike anything they could have imagined. The Zarek, the ancient enemies of the Titans, were not simply an alien race. They were a parasitic scourge that consumed entire civilizations, bending entire galaxies to their will. The Titans had fought them to the brink of extinction, but at great cost. In the final days of the war, the Titans disappeared, leaving behind only whispers in the darkness. Leela's mind races as she watches the projections, understanding now that the power they've awoken is not just a weapon. It is a legacy. The Titans' armor, the ancient suits, had been designed to protect against the Zarek, an unstoppable force that humanity, at this point, has never even heard of. But the warning is clear. The Zarek are not gone. They have only been dormant, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The projections suddenly stop, leaving the room in a heavy silence. The holograms flicker and fade, leaving only the dim glow of the suit in the center of the room. But the suit, still and silent, now seems alive with purpose. Then the voice booms once more, this time directly into their minds, as if it's speaking to each of them individually. The legacy of the Titans is yours, but beware. To wield such power is to become more than human. Are you ready to walk in the footsteps of giants? Leela swallows hard, her heart pounding in her chest. The question lingers in her mind. Are they ready? Eric Trent, ever the soldier, steps forward, his eyes hardening with resolve. We have no choice, he says. We're already too far into this. If the Zarek are coming, we need to be ready. We need this power. Leela watches him, knowing full well the dangers of such a decision. She turns to the others. Felix, who has been visibly shaken by the revelations, meets her gaze, his eyes clouded with fear and wonder. Are we truly ready? Felix asks softly. We're human. We can't become, whatever that is. But the air grows thick with the weight of the decision. As the voice of the Titan whispers through the station once more, Leela realizes that they no longer have the luxury of choice. This is their moment. Humanity's moment. The suit before them pulses again, as if in acknowledgement of their decision. The ancient power that it holds, that they now have access to, is far beyond anything they could have imagined. It is not just the potential to wield weapons, it is a force that can reshape the very fabric of reality. It could change humanity forever. The question remains, will they control the power, or will the power control them? As Leela steps forward, the weight of her decision presses down on her. Whatever happens next, there will be no going back. Leela took a deep breath, her fingers brushing against the surface of the Titan suit. The blue light in its eyes pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. It felt like a connection, a calling, something ancient and untouchable. She wasn't sure if it was the Titan consciousness within the suit or just the weight of what she was about to do, but the room felt charged, as if the very air crackled with energy. "Are you sure?" Felix's voice was barely a whisper. He stood a few feet behind her, his expression a mix of awe and fear. "This is beyond anything we've ever encountered." Leela didn't answer immediately. She couldn't. The voice of the Titan, resonating in her mind, was still fresh. "Are you ready to walk in the footsteps of giants?" Were they ready? Could anyone truly be ready for the responsibility that came with such power? "There's no time to waste," Eric Trent interrupted. His voice was firm, calculated, as always. He was the military commander, always focused on the objective. "We don't have the luxury of hesitation. If what those projections showed us is true, we're facing an enemy that's been waiting centuries to come back." The thought of the Zarek, the ancient parasitic creatures that had wiped out the Titans, gnawed at her mind. The holograms had shown the Titans as godlike warriors, their armor allowing them to bend space, time, and power to their will. But even they had fallen, and now the Zarek were returning. "We have to act now," Eric continued, "or we'll be wiped out before we even know what's happening." Leela looked at the team, each one ready but visibly shaken. They had no idea what they were truly stepping into, no idea what it meant to wield the power of the Titans. But the stakes were clear. The Zarek were coming. "All right," Leela said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. "We move forward. Activate the suit." With a sense of finality, Felix stepped forward. His hand hovered over the suit's chest plate. Then, with a steady motion, he pressed a hidden panel. The Titan suit before him shifted, and with a loud metallic hiss, the armor seemed to come alive. The once still figure slowly stood, the movements fluid and graceful despite the suit's immense size. Felix hesitated, feeling the weight of the ancient consciousness pressing into his mind. But then he pushed forward. The helmet attached itself seamlessly to his head, and when the seals clicked into place, the transformation was instantaneous. His body was no longer his own. The suit's overwhelming strength coursed through him, pushing his senses far beyond human limitations. He could feel the armor's ancient knowledge flood into his mind, its history intertwining with his own thoughts, its power becoming a part of him. It was a thrilling, terrifying feeling. A part of him wanted to reject it, but the suit's consciousness, their collective purpose, was far stronger. And for a moment, he understood. He could see the history of the Titans, their battles, their victories, their fall. "Felix," Leela asked, her voice breaking through the fog in his mind. "I'm fine," he said, his voice now deeper, more resonant. The power surged through him. The Titan's will was his, but there was something else, something darker. "No, I'm more than fine." Before anyone could respond, a sudden, sharp alarm sounded throughout the station. The walls flickered, and a red light bathed the room in an ominous glow. "We've got incoming," Eric said, already moving toward the control panel. He scanned the incoming data with practiced eyes. "It's them. The Zarek. They're here." Leela felt a cold chill run through her. The Zarek. Their first wave of attack, almost certainly, would be a scouting party. Quick, stealthy and brutal. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that they were coming. And they knew they were no longer alone in the galaxy. The Titans had returned. Felix, now fully clad in the Titan suit, turned to face Lila. His eyes, hidden behind the helmet, glowed faintly. His movements were slow at first, unsure, but with each passing second, he grew more confident, more controlled. "We fight," he said, his voice both human and something else. A power, old and nearly forgotten, resonated in his words. The team scrambled into action, each of them knowing that everything had changed. They weren't just explorers anymore. They were soldiers, the first to awaken the legacy of the Titans. The sound of Jarek warships approaching, growing louder in the distance, was the final push they needed. With a collective breath, they all stepped forward. The enemy was at their door, and humanity's new champions were ready to meet them. But as Leela looked at Felix, something gnawed at her. The feeling that they weren't just fighting for survival. They were stepping into the very role that the Titans had once occupied, and it was unclear whether humanity could hold the mantle without losing itself in the process. The first test of their power was about to begin. The Jarek warships were not like anything humanity had ever encountered. They didn't arrive with the roar of engines or the flash of blasters. Instead, they appeared like shadows in the dark, silently slipping through space, their hulls reflecting no light, absorbing it. The scanners on the horizon could barely track them as they descended toward the station. There was no grand announcement, no flashy assault. They were here, and they had come without warning. Leela stood at the command center, eyes locked on the monitor. The readouts were chaotic. Swarms of tiny ships, fast-moving and unpredictable, like locusts descending on a field. And it wasn't just the quantity of the ships that worried her. It was the design. These vessels weren't meant for defense or for conquest. They were meant for consumption. The Jarek had no desire to conquer. They had a singular, relentless purpose: to feed. "We don't have much time," Eric Trent said, his voice clipped and urgent. His military mind was calculating their odds, but the numbers didn't add up. His eyes flicked toward Felix, who was still adjusting to the immense power of the Titan suit. Felix, now fully encased in the armor, stood in the corner of the room, his hands clenching into fists, seemingly trying to get used to the weight and power coursing through him. He could feel it now, the hum of the suit's energy, the shifting memories of the Titans flowing through his veins. He could hear them, echoes of their thoughts, their fears, their triumphs. But there was something else, a gnawing presence at the edge of his consciousness. It was almost as if something was watching him, waiting for him to make a mistake. Felix snapped back to the present. "What's our first move?" His voice sounded different, deeper, like the voice of an ancient soldier echoing through time. Leela looked to Eric for confirmation. "We need to stop them before they can establish a foothold on the station. If they board us, we're finished. We need to take the fight to them." But just as she spoke, the lights flickered, and a strange alien signal blared through the station's comm system. It wasn't a distress signal or a message. It was a command, like a wave of energy, probing into their minds. Felix's hands twitched at his sides as he felt it, too, a mental pressure pushing against his thoughts. The Jarek were not only coming for the station, they were interfering with their minds. He could feel their intelligence, like a vast, cold consciousness extending out toward them. The Jarek didn't just fight physically. They infiltrated. "Get to the weapons bays," Eric ordered, slamming his fist on the table as the entire station hummed with the alien signal. His eyes narrowed. "They're trying to disable our systems, weaken our defenses." Leela didn't need to be told twice. She motioned to her team. "We're going to fight back, not just with weapons, but with everything we've learned from the Titans. Felix, you're with me." Felix nodded, still adjusting to the overwhelming sensations the Titan suit was forcing him to contend with. The more he concentrated, the clearer the ancient Titan consciousness became. He could feel their will pressing against his, urging him to unleash everything they'd once known. But there was an odd twist to it, a warning. Something ancient, something darker lurking in the depths of the Titan's power. Felix could almost hear it whispering in the back of his mind. You are not ready. Still, he followed Leela, stepping into the weapons bay. His movements were fast, almost instinctive now, the suit responding as if it knew exactly what to do. He could sense the hum of the weapons systems powering up, and his mind sharpened, every muscle in his body reacting before he even commanded it. As the team suited up, Eric's voice crackled through their comms. They're coming in fast. We need to engage before they can board. This is our one chance to hit them hard. Leela grabbed her rifle, attaching it to her back, her mind racing. She was used to the adrenaline of command, but nothing could have prepared her for this. Not only were they facing a ruthless enemy, but they were doing so with the power of the Titans at their backs. There was no way to predict how that would turn the tide. Would they be able to control it? Or would the very power that saved them be the thing that ultimately destroyed them? Felix could feel the power of the Titan suit thrumming beneath his skin, but something in the back of his mind kept nagging at him, urging him to stay cautious. The Xeric weren't just enemies. They were predators. And predators always knew how to turn their prey's greatest strengths against them. Everyone, stay alert, Leela ordered as they moved into the docking bay, their boots clicking against the floor. We'll take them on one strike at a time. But as they prepared to face the Xeric, Felix couldn't shake the feeling that something was far worse than they could see. Something unseen, a hidden force within the station itself, that was waiting to strike when they least expected it. The real test of their strength hadn't even begun yet. The Xeric vessels, silent and foreboding, loomed on the sensors, closing in with the inevitability of a storm. Lila's hands gripped the rail of the weapons bay, her knuckles white with tension. The team was ready, but the truth was, they had no idea what kind of enemy they were truly facing. The Xeric weren't just alien invaders. They were predators, predators that had survived for centuries by adapting to every obstacle in their path. Now, humanity had awoken something that could challenge them, the power of the Titans. Felix, still encased in the Titan suit, stood at the far end of the bay, his massive form standing like a monolith. His breath came slow and measured, each movement precise, controlled, but the feeling of alien power coursing through him was almost overwhelming. He could feel the suit's neural interface syncing with his thoughts, his instincts sharper than they'd ever been. Yet, despite all the strength now at his disposal, something deep inside warned him. This wasn't just about brute force. A sudden, sharp beep cut through the tense silence. The Xeric were moments away. Ready the cannons, Eric barked, his voice calm but urgent. We engaged them as soon as they breached the station's outer hull. Leela gave a tight nod, but her mind was elsewhere. The station, with its ancient architecture and cryptic energy, seemed almost alive. She had seen the projections, felt the echoes of the Titan's once mighty legacy. But even as she steeled herself for combat, there was something nagging at her, something wrong about the entire situation. The suit Felix wore, the very thing that might give them the edge in this war, also felt like a double-edged sword. She had no doubt the Titans could wield unimaginable power, but could they control it? Or would it control them? All systems online, the tech officer's voice came over the comms. Ready for engagement. Leela didn't wait for confirmation. Open fire. The massive guns of the station roared to life, sending waves of energy streaking through space. The Xeric ships, sleek, dark vessels that almost seemed to melt into the void, took evasive maneuvers, but the station's firepower was too overwhelming. One ship's shields shattered under the barrage, sending it tumbling toward the station. Before it could recover, another round of fire slammed into its hull, and it exploded in a fiery blaze. But the Xeric weren't defeated so easily. From the wreckage of their first ship, smaller pods detached and shot toward the station at breakneck speed. These were no ordinary warships. They were living weapons, biomechanical creatures that could adapt mid-flight, shifting shape to avoid the station's fire. They were relentless. "We've got boarding pods incoming," Eric reported as alarms blared throughout the station. "They're trying to breach the hull. We can't stop them all." Felix's enhanced senses flared. His Titan suit buzzed with the pulse of ancient power as the first boarding pod crashed into the station's outer wall. The impact was deafening. Within moments, the pod opened, releasing the Xeric troops. They were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Their bodies were a mix of chitinous armor and twisted organic metal, their limbs long and spindly, and their eyes glowed with an unearthly malice. The team quickly assembled, but Felix was already moving. The Titan suit's speed was unreal, a blur of motion as he charged into the first wave. His suit's massive gauntlets slammed into the Xeric with bone-crushing force, sending them sprawling across the floor. Each strike was an extension of the Titan's ancient martial prowess, every movement precise, calculated, and devastating. Yet despite the overwhelming power of the suit, Felix couldn't shake the feeling that the Xeric were not only fighting back, they were adapting. With a chilling screech, one of the Xeric creatures reformed its limb into a blade-like weapon, slashing at Felix with unnatural speed. The strike hit, but the Titan suit absorbed the blow, the alien energy field surrounding it flickering for only a moment. Felix grunted, his vision momentarily clouded with a flash of light, the memories of Titans past flooding his mind. Then the suit did something strange. It reacted. Before Felix could fully understand what was happening, the suit's energy surged, and a blast of kinetic force erupted from his chest. The Xeric, caught in the wave of energy, were thrown back, their bodies slamming against the walls with sickening thuds. What the hell was that? Felix gasped, still trying to regain his bearings. It wasn't just the suit, it was something else, an unbidden power surging through him, as if the Titans themselves were awakening once more. "Did you see that?" Leela shouted over the comms, her voice laced with awe. "Felix, you just—" "I didn't do that," Felix said, his voice uncertain. The suit had reacted on its own, responding to the threat in ways that didn't make sense. There was no control, no input. It was as if the suit had decided to fight for him. A voice, ancient and cold, whispered in his mind, "You are not ready, Felix Arden. You never were." The words sent a chill down his spine. He wasn't sure what the voice meant or what it intended, but one thing was clear. The Titan's legacy was not as straightforward as he had hoped. The battle was only just beginning. The Xeric were relentless, their numbers seemingly infinite. Felix could feel the overwhelming power of the Titan suit, but something deep inside him, an instinct, perhaps, or the lingering memory of the Titans themselves, kept warning him that this was only the beginning. The Xeric were adapting faster than they could fight back, their grotesque forms constantly shifting, twisting in ways that seemed almost alive, as if the very nature of the creatures was in flux. Felix felt the sharp sting of another Xeric blade scrape across his armor, and despite the suit's near invulnerability, the impact reverberated in his mind. His enhanced senses flared, but it wasn't just the physical danger that troubled him. It was the growing presence in his mind, the invasive whispering of the ancient Titan consciousness, urging him to strike harder, to release more power. "Felix," Leela shouted through his comms, "stay focused. They're not like anything we've faced before. Don't let the suit control you." Felix shook his head, struggling to regain control. The voice, an echo of the Titans, pressed harder, its words more insistent, more commanding. "Destroy them. Unleash the power. They are nothing." He clenched his fists, trying to block it out, but the urge to obey was growing. The suit was no longer just an extension of his body. It was an extension of a consciousness that had once fought wars on a scale he couldn't even comprehend. He was fighting not just for survival, but for something far more ancient, far more dangerous. With a roar, Felix swung his gauntlets in wide arcs, crushing Xeric warriors beneath his fists. The weight of their bodies hitting the ground reverberated through the station, and the sound sent a sickening thrill through him. He could feel the power coursing through his veins, his muscles straining against the suit's strength, but it was beginning to feel too easy. The Xeric were falling faster now, but as they did, he noticed something that made his stomach drop. More were coming, appearing out of nowhere, their forms blending into the shadows, almost as if they had never truly been there. The station seemed to shudder, its walls groaning as the Xeric made their presence felt. The power systems were flickering, and Leela could hear the distant sound of alarms blaring. They weren't just fighting on the front lines. The Xeric were infiltrating the station's systems, trying to turn their own technology against them. "We need to move now," Leela ordered. She turned to Eric, who had been coordinating the defense efforts. "Can we stop them from accessing the core systems?" Eric's eyes darted across the readouts. "We're trying, but they're too fast. We need to get to the central control hub, or they'll turn the whole station into a weapon." Lila didn't hesitate. "Felix, get ready. We're moving out. Eric, with me. The rest of you, hold this position. We can't let them breach the core." Felix was barely aware of her orders. His mind was in a haze, the whispers of the Titan consciousness now filling his thoughts completely. He could feel the ancient war instincts pushing him, urging him to lead the charge, to decimate their enemies with the very power that had once given the Titans dominion over the stars. But Layla's voice broke through the fog. "Felix," she shouted, "focus. We're in this together. You control the suit. The suit doesn't control you." The words hit him like a slap in the face, and Felix blinked, refocusing on the task at hand. He wasn't just a vessel for the Titan consciousness. He was still human, still Felix Arden. The suit was a tool, not a master. He nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. The overwhelming power simmered beneath his skin, but he held it in check, channeling it with purpose. The Xeric were coming from all sides, but they weren't invincible. Felix could still think, still act. And this time, he wouldn't let the power consume him. "We need to go," Eric repeated, his voice hard. "Now." With a sharp nod, Felix turned toward the exit, moving with the team toward the heart of the station. As they passed through the corridors, they encountered wave after wave of Xeric, their grotesque forms spilling from the walls like insects. But this time, Felix was ready. The Titan suit responded to his every move with uncanny precision, each strike of his fist sending the Xeric scattering. Yet, as the fighting raged on, he couldn't help but feel the weight of something far more dangerous creeping in. The sense that the real battle wasn't just outside the station. It was within. As they reached the control hub, Felix's senses flared. The Xeric were no longer just attacking. They were infiltrating. Something deeper, more sinister, was at work. The station itself was being warped, reshaped. The Xeric were turning the station against them, and no one, least of all Felix, was sure how much longer they could hold on. Leela met his eyes. "Get ready. Whatever happens next, we do this together." Felix's fingers tightened around the suit's controls. He was ready, but the true test of his strength, of his humanity, was still to come. The control hub was unlike anything Felix had imagined. It was a sprawling, vast structure at the core of the station, its walls lined with holographic interfaces and ancient relics that hummed with latent power. The air was thick with tension, the weight of the station's secrets pressing in on them from all sides. The Xeric had already infiltrated parts of the system, their influence spreading like a virus, warping the very fabric of the station's operations. The humming machinery, once the heartbeat of their station, now sounded like a distant, mechanical moan. Felix's senses were on high alert. The Titan suit thrummed under his skin, its energy buzzing with untapped potential. But as he stood at the threshold of the control room, his mind kept drifting back to the whispers. Those ancient voices that clung to him, urging him forward, telling him he could take control, that he was destined to lead, to wield the power of the Titans as they had once done. It was intoxicating, and the lure of it almost made him forget the people around him, the people he was fighting for. Lila's voice broke through the fog of his thoughts. Focus, Felix. We need to take control of the core before they do. It's now or never. Felix nodded, shaking his head as if to clear the remnants of the Titan consciousness clouding his judgment. They couldn't afford to lose their humanity in the face of such overwhelming power. Eric's eyes were sharp, scanning the room. We need to secure the main terminal. Once we're in, we can shut them down from the inside. A guttural screech suddenly echoed down the hall, and the doors to the control room slammed shut with a deafening clang. The Sherek had anticipated their move. It wasn't just a group of soldiers anymore. It was an infestation. They're blocking us off, Lila said, her eyes scanning the room for another way in. We'll have to fight our way through. Felix's hand instinctively clenched into a fist, the suit responding with a surge of power. You are ready, Felix Arden. You are their equal. The voice of the Titan whispered once again, its cold assurance pressing against him. But Felix wasn't sure if it was the Titan speaking to him, or something darker, something that had been waiting for this moment, waiting for him to break. Another screech pierced the air, followed by the sound of something heavy slamming against the walls. From the shadows emerged the first of the Zerek, an enormous creature, its body a grotesque mix of organic and mechanical, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence. It was unlike the others. This one didn't just fight, it led. Felix's heart raced. This was different. This wasn't just an attack. The Zerek were targeting them, tracking them through the station's labyrinthine halls. It was clear now. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for control. And the Zerek weren't willing to give it up. The beast roared, sending a shockwave through the control room. Before Felix could react, it lunged at him, its limbs extending with unnerving speed. He raised his arm, the Titan suit reacting instantly, forming an energy shield to deflect the creature's attack. The force of the impact shook him, but the shield held. For now, we can't hold them off forever. Lila shouted, pulling her blaster and firing at the creature. Felix, use the suit. Do whatever it takes to bring it down. Felix was already moving, his suit's immense strength propelling him forward. He could feel the power coursing through him, guiding him, the Titan's memories urging him to fight, to win. His gauntlet slammed into the Zerek's face, sending the creature reeling back. But it recovered quickly, its body shifting, repairing itself as though it had no true form, only a mind driven by hunger, by the need to evolve. The Zerek leader screeched again, this time sending waves of psychic energy toward Felix. The attack wasn't just physical, it was mental, invasive, attempting to warp his thoughts, to confuse him. Felix staggered, his vision blurring as the overwhelming presence of the Zerek filled his mind. You are nothing, Titan's child. You are weak. The Titan consciousness within him flared in response. No, you are nothing, it countered. The voice in Felix's mind grew stronger, more insistent. He could feel its power, its rage, burning inside him. Felix's body moved on instinct. He didn't consciously control his actions anymore. The suit was alive in a way he couldn't understand. His fist shot out again, this time with a blast of energy that obliterated the Zerek leader's chest, sending it crumbling to the floor. But even as the creature collapsed, the walls of the control room began to shift, as if the station itself were reacting to their violence. No, Felix gasped, looking around in panic. The walls began to pulse with a sickly light, and the air grew thick with a strange energy. The station was reacting to the conflict, as if it were alive, aware. Lila's voice cut through the chaos. Felix, we need to finish this. We're not just fighting the Zerek, we're fighting the very station itself. It hit him all at once. The station wasn't just a refuge for the Titans. It was part of them, a living, breathing entity that had been waiting for a purpose, waiting for someone to wield its power again. And now, that purpose was being twisted by the Zerek's influence. The Titan consciousness roared in his mind, urging him to embrace it fully, to unleash the station's full potential. Felix felt himself teetering on the edge of something far greater and far more dangerous. Felix's heart pounded as the station's walls seemed to close in on him. The air was thick with the resonance of something ancient, something alive. The energy that had once powered the Titans now hummed within the very core of the station, pulsing as though it were awake and aware, watching. The Jarek had triggered something they couldn't possibly understand, and neither could Felix. The Titan consciousness inside him had been coaxed awake, and it was no longer just a tool. It was an urge, a call to dominate, to finish the war they had started millennia ago. Felix, Lila's voice cut through the fog. Her hands gripped his arm, trying to pull him back. Don't let it take you. The station's gone rogue. It's not just a weapon anymore. It's alive. Felix's eyes locked onto hers, but the weight of the Titan's power inside him was unbearable. He could feel it, the ancient energy pulsing like a second heartbeat beneath his skin. The suit's systems were no longer responding to his commands. Instead, they were responding to the station, to the power it was offering. A cold, indifferent force gripped his mind, pushing him to embrace it. He gasped, fighting the pull. It wants me to. His voice faltered, and his head swam. It wants me to control it, to lead again. Leela shook her head, desperation in her eyes. No, Felix, we need you to fight for humanity, not for a dead empire. This is your choice, not the Titan's. But even as her words reached him, the Titan consciousness urged him to listen, to understand its true purpose. You were chosen. You are the successor to what was, the heir to the legacy of the stars. The Jarek do not understand the power they are tampering with, but you do. You can wield it. Felix staggered, his vision blurring. The walls of the control hub warped around him. The station's energy had already started to resonate with the Jarek, infecting its core systems, and if he didn't act, the Jarek would use it against them, warping humanity's only defense into a weapon of destruction. No, Felix shouted, clenching his fists. I choose humanity. The Titan power surged in retaliation, flooding him with a torrent of ancient memories. The battles, the conquests, the untold atrocities committed in the name of power. He could feel the weight of all of it, their desires seeping into his thoughts. The temptation was suffocating, but Leela's voice, calm and firm, anchored him. Felix, listen to me. You are not them. You are human. You make your own choices, your own fate. The Titan consciousness raged against her words, but Felix's grip on his humanity hardened. He wasn't a pawn in their game. He was Felix Arden. He had been born with a purpose that wasn't tied to the Titan's legacy of war. His purpose was to protect the people he loved, to fight for the future they had yet to write. With a guttural roar, Felix focused every ounce of willpower into one final act. The Titan suit responded, its energy surging outward in a pulse that sent a shockwave through the control room. The walls of the station cracked, and the Jarek forces, already advancing toward the heart of the station, were thrown back by the force of the blast. But the energy didn't just push the Jarek. It sent a message to the very core of the station. The dormant power of the Titans awoke, but it no longer answered the call of conquest. It responded to Felix's will. The control room trembled as the station's systems began to collapse under the strain. It's breaking apart. Eric shouted. Felix, we need to go. Now. Felix, panting, nodded, still shaking from the strain of fighting the Titan consciousness. But the power of the station was no longer a threat. It had realigned itself with him, as if it recognized the futility of continuing the cycle of destruction. The Titan's legacy had been shattered by humanity's will to survive. With a final effort, Felix pushed open the control room's door, and the team flooded into the hall. But as they ran toward the escape route, they could feel the station's descent, its self-destructive collapse in response to the battle for its control. Get to the shuttles, Leela ordered, as the station's alarm screamed louder than ever. Hurry. Felix wasn't sure how long they had. The power of the Titan suit still thrummed beneath his skin, and the echoes of ancient voices still whispered, but they were fading now. The station was dying, and with it, the last remnants of the Titan's dominance. As the team reached the shuttle bay, Felix paused, looking back at the station. The light was dimming, the energy flickering like a fading star. The Xeric forces had been driven back, and the station was no longer their weapon. It was humanity's victory. Felix took a deep breath, his grip steady as he looked to Leela. "We've won, but it's only the beginning." Leela smiled, her eyes fierce with determination. "We'll fight whatever comes next. Together." Felix nodded. The war was far from over, but now he knew his purpose. He wasn't the heir to the Titan's legacy. He was the beginning of something new. Humanity's future, written by their own hands.